Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division 2 video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you the Battlegroup preview for the 29th Tank Corps. Please remember that everything you are about to see is still in beta and therefore subject to change. Let's start with the Recon. So my first card is a card of 4 Dozor, coming in with the BA-20, this armoured car here. That's very quick off-road. I believe it is 54 kilometers per hour, and that is awesome. And therefore you can use it to pick up these guys if they get left behind and continue to move them to the front line. That's the main use of this armored car. It can also help with pinning down enemy infantry, but I wouldn't really recommend it for that role. Next up we have the Su-57. This is basically an AT gun on a half track. It does have 12 round per minute rate of fire at the moment with 115mm of penetration, so actually pretty strong at hitting medium tanks and cleans up light vehicles very well. So watch out for this thing, definitely worth taking at the moment in phase A, might get nerfed. Then we have the Valentine 3. I just have this in the division at the moment because I wanted to try it out. It's actually really slow and not actually that good. We've got a 2-pounder with only AP shells, so it can't even support infantry with its main gun. And then the baser has like limited damage and suppression for sure, so not a great tank for supporting infantry, only really good for picking off light vehicles and half tracks potentially. Other choices in the Recon tab include your standard motorbike here. We have the Mot Razvedka, which are your 4-man recon squads, and then the standard Razvedka, which you can get 4 cards of, which are very sneaky and do have the M1 bazooka. So you can use these to ambush if you like. Carrying on to the infantry tab, first of all, I've chosen the 2 Avtokomroti at 2-star veterancy. They are going to be supplementing my infantry with extra command. And they're great because they only have the 100-meter range submachine guns and the smoke to cover themselves off. Then we have a card of the 6 Sapori. These guys are good at medium and close range engagements because they rely on SVTs and DPs for medium range, and they have the submachine gun, the Pepush, and the TNT for close range. They will still lose out to squads that have solely submachine guns, as well as flamethrower squads, so watch out for that. Then we have the Strelki DP in phase A. These guys are fantastic, really good value for money. You can get 9 on a card. You have 8 SVTs with these guys, no Mozins in sight, and then we have 2 DPs and a PTRD for armoured vehicles. Then we have in phase B the Avtomachiki. These guys are great. 10-man Pepush squads, fantastic close range infantry, do still lose out to flamers, but otherwise can defeat most other infantry squads. And they use the RPG-43, that stops, especially in towns, vehicles rushing through them. Then we have 12 more Sapori, again another good squad for taking on infantry at close and medium range, and you're just getting more of those. In phase B, I bring some of these because you can't actually get any flamethrower squads in the infantry tab with the 29th Tank Corps. Then in phase C, we have more Avtomachiki for just securing those forested and town areas, because you're not going to have too much trouble securing the open areas, so we don't need things like Gvardia, or in this case a Strelki. Avtomachiki should do just fine. Other choices in the 29th Tank Corps include the Sapori with the TNT and Panzerfaust. These guys are good because you can bring them in a Jeep, which is very fast, and you can therefore get them to positions that your opponent may not expect. So maybe try that out. Then we have the Tanko Desantniki, which are your 8-man squads, pretty cheap, and come with smoke grenades, so they can keep themselves alive, get themselves into cover quite well. Then we have the standard Strelki squads. These guys are pretty trash, to be honest, because they rely on the Mozins, and they only have 1 DP, they only have 1 submachine gun, and they use short range AT. So compared to the Strelki DP, which are only 5 points more expensive, these guys are pretty awful. So be wary of that. Then we have the command bike, which we've seen before. We've got the Avtokomroti, which I've already got in the division. We have the Strelki Komroti. These guys are pretty much the same as the Avto Komroti, they just rely on SVTs rather than the push. Then we have the Tanko Komroti, which has a 300 or 100 meter range, or 60 meter range even, a T-grenade. And then we have the Sapari Komroti, which have a Panzerfaust. And that is pretty much it. Moving on to the tank tab, and this is where the 29th Tank Corps really shines. So I'm starting off by choosing the T-34-76 1942 in Phase A. We get 6 of those on a card. Your 100mm penetration, decent for taking on enemy medium tanks. You can also rush down things like Tigers and Panthers with these quite well. I've also got 2 cards of the T-34-85 1943s in Phase A. I bring these in with the 1-star veterancy so that we can buff them up to 3 stars very easily, and then they are very effective in the early game with the 145mm of penetration. But now the bad boys you've all been waiting for, and that is the IS-2 1943. These guys have 170mm of frontal armor, 200mm of penetration, and they are the new king of the battlefield in Steel Division 2 right now. One thing I will make sure to warn you guys about is their ammo count. These guys do run out of ammunition quite quickly, so maybe think about bringing extra supply just because you are relying on IS-2s. So I've got 2 cards of those in Phase B, we got 2 more cards in Phase C. You can get 4 cards in total, which is insane, and that gives us a total of 18 IS-2s throughout the game. At 145 points apiece, I'm not sure if you're going to get round to bringing them all in, but maybe in an extended game you will. I've also got the IS-2 Command, which has the aerial on top, you can see next to the gun there, and that is basically to accompany my squads of IS-2s as we push across the open. So your IS-2s are going to be taking control of the long range engagements, and then you have things like the Avtomachiki and your infantry to take control of the shorter range engagements. Other choices in the 29th Tank Corps include the Command Valentine. Unfortunately, it does suffer from a really bad gun and the fact it's really slow, so not really worth bringing in my opinion. Then we have the T-34-85s, which can definitely assist your other T-34-85s in the division if you find space. And then we have the 1944 variant of the T-34-85 that you can choose. I don't bring any of these in because they are more or less outclassed by the IS-2s in the late game, and you only get limited availability of them in the early game. So there you go. That's the tank tab. Now we have the support tab of the 29th Tank Corps. This is actually a very limited tab with the 29th. But first of all, we've got the card of 9 flamethrower squads. You can only bring them in Phase A, and I'm going to max out on availability by bringing them with no veterancy. Really good for close range combat, and since they're the only flamethrower squads you can get, definitely need to bring them in my opinion. In Phase B, we have 6 of the Studebaker. I have considered bringing more supply in this battle group, so make sure to potentially think about that yourselves, but I only have 1 card at the moment. Then we have both of the commanders. Now, one interesting thing about this battle group, or this division, is that they can't get a commander in Phase A. So I'm bringing in the Phase B and Phase C commanders, and that's just something to consider. You won't have that extra command in the early game. Other choices include the Maxim machine gun that we've seen before, and the 52P353 76mm infantry gun. I believe this needs a little bit of work, but still looks cool, and I'm sure we'll get around to using it eventually. Now moving on to the anti-tank tab. We start off with a card of the 45mm AT guns. We're bringing them in with no veterancy, which gives us 4 on a card. These are great for using with efficient shot because they have quite a consistent amount of penetration, so they will find you side shots, but don't try and engage an enemy heavy tank from range with this gun because it will lose out pretty much every time. It's great for picking off light vehicles though, so if you can get into a situation where it can cover a reinforcing road, it may find quite a few kills due to its high rate of fire. Then we have the M10. This is still a bit of a work in progress. The 65% accuracy that you can see here on the stat card is not correct. But either way, good to see some more Lend-Lease units in the game. You do get a relatively decent amount of them. I'm bringing them in at 1-star veterancy, and we get 2 on a card. They cost 50 points apiece. They've got 75mm of frontal armor. Pretty decent unit at the moment. Then we have 2 of the ZIS-2 AT guns in Phase A as well. These come with the 185mm of penetration, so fantastic for picking out those harder targets. But still, I would recommend potentially using them with efficient shot after the APCR shells are used up, because you can see the standard shells only have 120mm of penetration, which is only 20mm more than the APCR of the 45mm. So you're not really going to get too much out of this after the APCR shells are spent. The one way to get around that is maybe have a supply nearby to resupply the APCR shells as you go. Then we got more M10s in Phase B and more ZIS-2 in Phase B as well. Other choices in the anti-tank tab include the PTRS squads, which you can get a lot of in all phases, but since you can get some of these PTRDs with the infantry, the PTRS isn't really needed. Then we have access to the ZIS-3 if you want it. They have 135mm of penetration on their APCR shell, but their standard AP shells only 105, and they'll get through the APCR shells quite quickly, so bear that in mind. Otherwise you can use them as artillery, but since their accuracy is pretty awful, I wouldn't really recommend it, and you only have a limited amount of HE shells. Then we have the good old Su-85. This does struggle quite a bit at the moment, which is why I haven't added it to this battle group. But with the 180mm of penetration, it can do well from an ambushing position. So the anti-air tab in the 29th Tank Corps is pretty simple. We only have access to the Dushka, the Maxim 4M and the 37mm that we've all seen before. In this particular battle group though, I'm going to be bringing in a card of the 37mm AA. In Phase A, no veterancy with the M2A1 half-track that gives you a 50 cal, and it's pretty useful for repositioning the AA if it comes under artillery fire, and this half-track in general is faster than the Dushka that you can bring it in, and both of them I believe can fire at the sky. So you pretty much got the same gun, but the M2A1 comes with armor and also a faster speed, so useful for getting AA to where you need it as soon as possible. Does increase the price quite a bit, but I think it's personally worth it. Then I've got another card of those in Phase B as well, and that is pretty much it for the anti-air tab. Very, very lackluster. Next up we have the artillery tab, and our first card is going to be the 4 mortar bikes with no veterancy. These guys are great because they can reposition themselves really well. They have over twice the speed of the infantry mortars off-road, so you can keep these in quite abstract locations. They do lack a little bit of ammunition in comparison to the infantry variant, but in general, decent unit and can help suppress enemy forces in the early game. And as we move into Phase B, we have our old friend, the Katyusha. And these guys are pretty good. Not as good as they used to be. They've been a bit nerfed in the beta so far. They no longer kill tanks as much unless they get direct hits, more or less. But they can suppress an area very, very well, allowing your ground forces to get in there and do plenty of damage. Then moving on to Phase C, we have 12 of the 76mm howitzers. These are just great spam for the late game. Spread them out a bit. They've got 30 HE shells to fire, so they won't need to be resupplied all that often and can be a real nuisance if you use them en masse. Other choices in the artillery tab include the VZ VOD. These are your commanders that you can bring in to supplement your artillery if needs be. Then you have the 82mm infantry mortar that we've mentioned already, the 120mm infantry mortar. This thing does have 6,000 meter range, which is pretty significant, so it might be worth substituting for the mortars on the bikes if you want. Then we have a off map. These guys have 76mm off map, not the most powerful so far, and it's difficult to tell how effective this is at the moment, but might be worth a try. And then you've just got more availability of either the 76mm or the Katyushas. Finally, we have the air tab, and we start off with another Lend-Lease unit. This is the Boston A20G. This is the ground attack variant. It comes with 4 ventral machine guns underneath, which are basically there purely for the ground attack role. So very, very strong indeed, and can strafe heavy tanks into submission as well as destroy light vehicles. So fantastic in the early game whilst there's not much AA about, and that's what I'm using them for in this battle group. Then we have another Lend-Lease aircraft. This is the P-39Q American fighter. It has a 37mm in the nose as well as 4 50 cals. An absolute force to be reckoned with in both air-to-air combat and also in a strafing role. So fantastic in the early game again, whilst there's not much AA about and not many aircraft. Once there is more AA, these guys can fall apart in the sky quite easily. They're quite brittle aircraft compared to the Bostons. You can see the resilience of the Boston is very good. P-39 is bad, so it's quite a difference. So bear that in mind moving on through the game. Then, as my final third card, we have the 3 Boston A20Cs, which is the bomber with a medium payload of 3 500kg bombs. These are good enough to pin down a pretty large area, but these do become pretty big targets for enemy fighters and anti-air, and they're not too fast. So make sure they're either supported by your own anti-air as you bring these in, or your own fighters if they don't have too much anti-air on the opposing side. And that's basically my choices. Other choices in the air tab include the PO2. This is a 10-point recon aircraft that's unarmed. You can only get 3 on a card though, and you're restricted as to how you can bring them in. So because their availability is pretty low, in my opinion, they're just a waste of activation points. If you could maybe get 6 on a card, it might be worth it. Then we have the A20C. This is the carpet bomber variant, which has 20 50kg bombs as opposed to 3 500kg bombs. Then we have the P-39N. Instead of having 50 cals in the wings, it has 30 cals in the wings, so it has a little bit less of air-to-air and strafing role than the standard fighter variant. But it does come with 6 frag rockets under the wings here. These aren't all that great though, so be wary that they're pretty unreliable and won't necessarily pin things down the way you want them to. So you can bring them if you want extra P-39s, but otherwise maybe give them a break. We also have the Boston A20C at the end with the 1000kg bomb, which has a massive blast radius. And then finally we have the LA-7 Russian fighter. This thing is badass. I love these. They look so damn cool. But in general, not too great. Only 2 damage on its guns. 220 mils in the nose is not as good firepower as a P-39Q, for example. So bear that in mind, but otherwise extremely fast and pretty good in a dogfight. Otherwise, that's about it. That's all of the choices for the division. Just quickly, for the defences, we have the barbed wire. I've taken 2 cards of the bunker maxims with the 1 veterancy, and then we have a card of trenches. Not bringing any gun pits this time around. And that's it. That's your lot. That's the 29th Tank Corps. They are fantastic in the late game at the moment with the abundance of IS-2s to control open ground. They do have some infantry for close range engagements, but be prepared to lose out to flamethrowers, especially with things like these Avtomachiki squads. So in general, fight at range, build your forces around the IS-2s, and you should have a decent amount of success with the division. But that's all from me. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this look at the 29th Tank Corps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.